had to do it.
This call is now being recorded. This call is now being transcribed.
I don't hear that, but
I heard something.
yeah, I know. Catherine was talking about the fact that that's good to remind agents too, that not to create your own sales file, because the listing has to be converted to a sale when we have the listing. So, yeah. All right. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Now, Yvonne, you're going to grow something, right?
Good morning.
Morning, Amanda. Good.
Good morning. Yes, I sign out.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you for. I know that they're really pushing. It's going to be a great 25th anniversary. For the prices did go up for everybody that's on the call here, but they said that if we have people that are interested in going, to reach out and they would probably honor the previous price. So they want to there. So if you're thinking about it, you should go. It'll be fun.
Just because it's Marty.
That's right. No. Yeah, Marty said, well, yeah, that's what they said. That's funny. So you guys been what? So Aaron, a question for you on the commercial side. Don and I were talking about the residential market, and the national news is nationwide prices are down what 2%, Don?
Yeah.
Locally close to 3. Looking at a little bit more inventory, we're at 5.5 months in inventory as far as residential. Does commercial line up with residential as far as the market, or does it differ? It's just completely
It's different. Yeah, and they usually separate it by product type. They'll usually list out office, retail, industrial. Industrial and retail have been doing well. I also haven't checked it in a minute, so I would have to get you updated. But kind of consistently over the past 12 months, even longer, retail and industrial have been the stronger products. Office has been struggling for years. So that's probably going to continue to be the place. Yeah.
Isn't it like 25, 26% vacancy rate?
Yes.
Ouch.
Absolutely. At least.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I'm surprised retail, though. I'm surprised that retail's doing as well as it is.
I think retail has had to adapt a little bit, and you're seeing different players, different uses that in the past landlords would not really consider, like smoke shops or CBD and things like that. Whereas now you see that as a lot more of a common tenant. So you just kind of are getting different tenants now, but the retail prices for the most part have stayed, they've kind of remained, they haven't gone down.
I've seen a lot of vacant retail spaces in these like 5-year-old, 10-year-old like commercial buildings. I've seen some new spaces as well, but they won't reduce their rates. Is that typical? Or?
Yeah. So sometimes there are reasons why it doesn't really serve them to reduce the rates if they're planning on selling at some certain time. Usually there's a plan, like there's a 5 to 10 or even longer plan here. And so sometimes having their number is so important that they're willing to wait for it. Also, depending on how they're leveraged, they might have rules and regulations against, where they can be priced. So every deal is so unique. You
feel like they'd
they'd
rather have it vacant than take a long-term lease for too little money.
So yes, sometimes that's the case. Sometimes there are leases on the space, but they just have not been able to occupy for one reason or another. They could be paying on it and you just don't know. They've never occupied. I've seen so many different scenarios. So sometimes just because you visually see something doesn't mean that contractually it reflects the same thing. It could be anything.
It could be a tax write-off too, whatever.
Yeah, there could be so many things going on. You really won't know unless you actually know the parties. And usually then they're under, NDAs and things like that. You just really may not know if you're not a party to the transaction.
That's really helpful. I know that, obviously in different states, you see certain like the commercial market doing great, residential struggling, and then oftentimes there will be like a lag, but oftentimes investors will come in. They'll look for either their residential investment or they'll look for commercial investments, and so when money comes in, obviously they're typically. And then
one thing they talk about is like following the rooftops.
Mhm.
So if they are doing major residential development, then usually the commercial follows right behind that. That's when they're going to bring in those big box stores, the grocery stores, things like that to service those neighborhoods.
I know Yvonne's got a question in a second, but it's something very fascinating to me watching certain areas that have a good, sort of like a network of houses, like you said, and the businesses are great. But I still see a lot of businesses open up and close out fairly quickly around here on a routine basis. I think even where I live up in Woodforest, we've got more businesses there than we did when we moved in, but they're different businesses. We've had several just close their shop. Is
Yeah.
it rental prices or just the market?
Honestly, in my experience, people underestimate what it takes to be successful in commercial space.
Mhm.
You need to have not only the rent, but costs for contingencies. You got to be able to fund your business. What if there's build out? What if something happens in the market? Like you have to be very, very well funded. Or if one thing happens, now you're in debt. Basically, you can't be that tight with your business. And a lot of
Right.
business owners are very, very. They're like they're almost paycheck to paycheck. If that kind of to make that same kind of comparison.
Right.
So I think the better funded you are, the having a business plan, it's very, very necessary. And so a lot of times I think you see those mom and pop stores, the more local businesses are the ones that phase out. When you have those nationally recognized brands and you have the franchises, usually they have a little bit more cushion there and are able to sustain the market changes, things like that.
Yvonne, you want to chime in here or you have a question?
I do have a question. It's kind of different than what we're talking about, but I don't know if you have any procedure. Basically, I have a listing, okay, and the sellers decide to don't continue to terminate basically the listing.
Mhm.
But what happened is they say that they want to sell by themselves.
Okay.
I've been working with them for like 3 months already. And do we have any fees and how we can do, because they asked me how much you're gonna charge me. And I said, okay, let me ask my broker. Because I've been working with that property for like since even before the listing. So
Mhm.
it's like they think that they might sell by themselves, and that's fine. But so right now, after I've been having the listing for 3 months, and the worst part for me is like they overprice.
Mhm.
I told them that that it's not gonna be a good starting
Yeah.
point with that price, but they say, "Oh no, we're just gonna see what how is basically waiting for the what they want." So
Mhm.
so for me it was a disadvantage, and now finally they lower the price, but it's overpriced.
Mhm.
So but now it's like they think that they wanna sell by themselves. So it's like they don't want. It's not like they don't want to take off the market because they don't want to sell anymore, but they wanna,
Right.
sell by themselves. So like,
I guess the questions I would have, first of all, is do they have a buyer in mind? Does someone come along where they want to avoid paying you a commission? That would be your natural inclination. Number two is, do they have another realtor? They just don't want to tell you. But sometimes for sell by owner, they typically majority of them end up working with a realtor because the market experience, the exposure to the market, the MLS, you sell for more and more often. So generally that's not it. I'd probably ask more questions. We do have early termination of listing where you can say, look, this is my fee. Here's my cost for pictures. Here's what I want to recoup. And it's negotiable. So you can charge what you want to charge, and then they can agree to it or not agree to it. They've agreed to pay you the whole amount if you sell the property. It hasn't sold yet. And like you said, it was priced too high. That's another one of those lessons that no matter whose idea it was to price it too high, it still comes down to when you price it too high and you miss the market, you're going to be held accountable for it. They're going to blame you regardless as the agent, even though you told them it's too high. that's those conversations that where early on, it's good to say, you know what, as a marketing professional, if I price your property too high, not only do we not get the buyers you want, because 80% of the buyers that could buy your property won't see it, right? And we'll miss those, and we're chasing buyers later by coming down and probably sell for less than we probably could if we wait. Okay, that's it. Second of all, everybody out there sees Yvonne Alvarez's sign on the yard not selling because Yvonne prices properties too high. You hurt my business by doing this, right? And so it's twofold. I want to serve you, and if you really want to sell this property, we can't list at that price, because you want to be your biggest price. If you don't want to sell it, then we shouldn't be listing your property, right? That's in hindsight for the next time. And so for them, it sounds like they may not really want to sell. Don, you have any thoughts on that? It sounds like they're playing with it, So I would probably work on a early termination. I would think about what your time is worth and see if you can negotiate some of that commission. And I also write down all the buyers that saw the property while you had it listed, so they have a list, knowing that if they turn around and sell it to one of them, you still get paid the full commission. Don?
This is one time where the protection period actually has a use. I've always said the protection period is one of the most useless provisions in that listing agreement, because it just says that if these people go on and list with somebody else who is a member of the Texas Association of Realtors and they have to pay them a fee, then your protection period is gone. But if they live up to what they said, which is, I want to try to sell it myself, then your protection period is actually there, because that's what that protection period's for. Texas Association of Realtors doesn't care which one of us gets paid. They just want one of us to get paid. So if they're under contract with listing with somebody else, and your protection period's gone. But if they're really going to try to go it alone, do exactly what Marty said. Get a list of as many buyers as you can think of that know about that property, and give them that list, because whatever number of days you put in there, hopefully it was at least 90. The number of days that you put in there, that you've got that protection. If they should sell it to one of those people, then your protection period will kick in. But that's really about the only time that protection period really has any real function, is if they really are going to go out and try to do it on their own. But I think there's a lot of that right now. I think that sellers are seeing that we're not going to be able to get what we want, and so they're thinking, where can I cut? What expenses can I cut? And of course, we're the biggest one, so it's like, that's the one. It's like, this probably isn't that hard. I bet we can do this on our own.
An article, Don and I were talking about the market beforehand, Yvonne, and to all of you. And one of the articles I pulled up while we're talking about it was, there is a increased number of delistings nationwide, meaning people are, instead of lowering the price, they're taking it off the market and either selling it themselves or not selling. So because of the inventory is increased, you have prices are dropping a bit across the market. You see sellers going, well, maybe I won't sell. Chances are, Yvonne, they will list again. So, at the very least, I would negotiate some compensation in the list, and I would stay in touch with them, because they may want to put it back on the market, and they may be more realistic in the future.
Yeah, just let them know that there's no hard feelings here, that they're more than welcome to come back, that you would love for them to come back. It's like, yeah, I get it. If you want to try it on your own for a while, that's fine. But if at some point in time you decide you want to come back, then hey, all is forgiven. Just come on back.
Right. And you may even want to, this is up to you, but you may even want to say, whatever you pay me now for that termination, I'll credit towards your commission you owe me when we sell it. Just give them an incentive to come back to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a form from HomeSmart that we can, or
the early termination of listing. So you have a place in there to charge a fee for it. It's mutually agreed upon. Now, there's no standard per se, but your time's worth something, right? And your marketing costs. So. And
what about the fees that we have to? There is any fees that we have to pay to HomeSmart?
Yep. Anything that isn't a commission is miscellaneous. So that would be a miscellaneous fee. It'd be a 10% charge to you. with a minimum of 50 and a maximum of 399. So depending on how much you get, and so let's say you get 1,000, right? Then you're going to pay $100. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Catherine, I'll go to you in a second. Aaron, one more question on the commercial side of things too. You said that the commercial owners are opening up to new types of tenants. That makes sense. In the past, they wouldn't want like a CBD store.
Right.
It may attract the wrong crowd to a strip mall or whatever, right? But if you have someone that's a good paying tenant, the overall value of the property is still maintained. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, so as an owner, you do need for your property to be income producing in order for it to make sense.
Yeah.
So having it vacant really usually, like I said, unless they are paying rent behind the scenes and maybe they're just not occupying the space. But so what exactly is the question? Is
that the reason why they're opening up to the tenants they typically wouldn't have before? Because they didn't want the kind of the image perspective, or maybe other tenants didn't want to be in the same building as a CBD dealer or whatever.
So tenant mix is a thing. Yeah, having the right mix. Usually, the best landlords are going to be mindful about that type of thing. But a lot of it, when it comes to CBD and THC, was about the legality of it before, on the fence. And is it medical? Is it this or that? But now you do see a lot more of those type of stores. I think that from what we hear, a lot of people say that they are kind of placeholders for the hope that at some point it really does become legal and now you can do this and that. Another piece is that sometimes in these business plans, they have written that they can change certain elements of their use. So if things become illegal, then they can make changes, or if they become legal, then they can make changes. But also just the market is changing, the buyers are changing. And so with that being said, the way that people shop changes, and that also kind of dictates how things change on the retail side.
I will say this, just as a side note, if they ever do legalize it here, they legalized it in Washington State years ago. And it was interesting. There's a Starbucks in every corner, seems like. Now there's a Starbucks and a pot store on every corner.
Yeah.
And they're not like your CD pot store. These are like high-end.
Right, exactly. You're seeing all
things.
Different types. Yes. Yeah.
You'll see these strip centers with a CBD store and a bunch of food establishments in the.
There we go, right?
And then even with the food thing, there's usually restrictions as far as that goes. Parking requirements are another thing. So if a space doesn't have enough parking, sometimes they won't allow any more restaurants or things like that. So there's a lot of different nuance for different types of businesses. But I will say part of what made industrial be so successful is because of Amazon and those type of businesses that do a lot of online. So instead of having storefronts, they have big, manufacturing and distribution centers.
Right. Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine, you had a question or statement?
Statement. I was going to mention to Yvonne that make sure she kept all her expenses. Like if she had pictures and things like that she needed to make sure she kept all that. But the other part I was wanting to make sure she was aware of is the counters that are on Matrix, where you can do reverse
prospecting.
Prospecting, and you can literally see and reach out to the agent, the number on the person who saved it. They'll know what that number is because it's the number assigned in the HAR system.
Yeah.
And you can extract that into a spreadsheet
and provide it to your sellers as people that saw the property came to attention of during your listing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's all.
Cool. There you go. All right. Anything else? Let's see. So Don, we've talked about listings and timing and that kind of stuff. And Yvonne talked about the pricing of it, obviously. With the market that now we've seen a drop in price year over year of about 3%. We're seeing an increased number of listings in the market. We have about 5.5 months of inventory. What are you telling sellers now and when you take a new listing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a education process for sure. Because it was already, after 2021 and first half of 2022, they had got to the point they didn't really come down that much,
Right.
but they plateaued. And so they just have to realize now that there's a lot of competition out there, that marketing time, and that's really the big thing, is that we have to make sure that we give ourselves on our listing agreement, we give ourselves enough time. If we're saying that inventory, 5.5 months of inventory, I wouldn't want to take a listing for less than 4 months at least. You know, you don't want to cut yourself short because you don't want to be the one to do all the work and bring it to everybody's attention. And then you get to the end of the listing and they figure that, well, didn't go under contract, you didn't do your job. So they go and list with the next person and it sells within a week to 10 days. And it looks like, wow, they're great. And you end up looking horrible, but you were the one that really was one that brought it to the market's attention. I think, you know, for us, it's making sure that we give ourselves an amount of time. And of course, if they're going to list it high, you know, we've got that time, price, condition kind of thing that, you know, if you want the highest price, you've got to give me time to find that person, you know?
Yep. Looking at the changes on the maps here, Redfin just put out some new maps today as well on Inman about the market times. It looks like Houston's still not terrible as far as days on the market on average, those close pending, but a lot more are being delisted and a lot more not being sold. So pricing becomes much more. Don and I are talking about this, aren't we? So I think on Friday you're covering sort of challenging appraisals. I think that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
On your virtual contracts, we're talking about CMAs. What an appropriate timing thing where pricing has always been one of the most important thing to do. In markets that are rising or active, you could be a little bit more general. You could be close and still be fine. I think you're going to have to be a lot more accurate in this market to make sure that you're not only competitive, but you sell properties. You know, that's
Yeah, and I think it's important that we tell them what we think.
Yeah.
Even if you're going to take it high, that's fine. You know, there's two different strategies out there. You've got the strategy is that I'll take it high, and over time they'll figure it out, and I'll be able to get it down where I need to get it. And then there's the strategy of I'm going to take it at what I think it really should be, or I'm not going to take it. And there's not a right or a wrong. It's just whichever strategy you're going to use. But even if you're going to agree to take it high and figure that along the way, they'll figure it out and it'll eventually get down to where it needs to go, you still need to tell them what you think. I've had times where I've had agents tell me that their seller actually got mad at them, that when they got around to lowering the price and the agent got around to saying, well, you know, I thought we listed it too high. I didn't think it would sell for that. And the seller comes back and says, why didn't you just tell me that? Why didn't you tell me that in the beginning? Because if you had, I would have priced it where it needed to go. Because, you know, we just have the assumption that every seller's driving motivation is price, but it's not. A lot of times it's timing. And that they need to get out in a length of time, and they may not be telling you everything that's going on with them. And it's just important, I think, that we make sure and tell them exactly what we think, whether they go along with it or not. You know, I think it's important that we tell them exactly what we think it should be, and not so later on we can say, "See, told you." And so
that causes some bad feelings.
They can see that we have some credibility later on.
Yeah, and I've been in position many times to say I told you so, and you don't want to say that. I'd be like, okay, you know, and sometimes you've been wrong, but generally, you know, I gotten, I don't know, 5-6 years of my career, I finally got to the point where I wouldn't take an overpriced listing. You know, I may have lost out on some business and whatever. I just I've done this enough. Here's the information. Here's the range we can be in. You know, the higher in that range will go, the longer it'll take to sell. The lower the range, the faster. You know, generally saying, here's my suggestion. But if it's outside the range, then you're just wasting time. You know, and oftentimes that bluntness and directness, they respect that. They go, okay, cool. I didn't always get the listing, but oftentimes they would come back to me later on. Right.
That's it. Yeah. Let someone else do the legwork.
Right. Or someone else lists it high and doesn't sell, and then they come back and say, all right, here, I should have listened to you. And you don't say, yeah, you should
have listened to you. Yeah.
But that also comes from, you just like, okay. And there are times when a property sold for more than I thought it would. And they're like, oh, okay. and then the appraisal didn't come in. Okay, well, it's like you feel bad because okay, now we're still selling at the price, but it's
Results the same.
it results the same, right? So it really comes down to what's a buyer willing to pay in a market, right? Did you get in front of enough buyers? Does it look attractive enough as far as appeal, and are you priced right? So, and that's why it's funny. That's one thing we've talked many times on these calls is I always set the expectation that you and me, seller, you and I are setting the price based on the knowledge, the market data we have today. And the market's going to tell us if we're priced right. We're going to get lots of showings, lots of activities, lots of offers. Then we're priced right. If we get no showings and no offers, then we're not priced right. We need feedback. We need the market to tell us. And then we're going to check on this, even if we get lots of activity up front and know we're priced close or right, and no offers, we're still going to look at price every 2 weeks. I'm going to call you every Friday with updates. Every 2 weeks, I'm going to do CMA. I'm going to come back to you and say, all right, our price still looks good based on the market, or the price looks like it's high or whatever, because something has changed. Another pending sale, another property went active. You need to know that so we can adapt and react to the market. It's not me telling how much your house is worth or you saying how much your house is worth. We're saying, what is the market telling us? And it really frees them up. So usually before I can even call them, they're calling me up and saying, hey, I need to drop the price. Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree. The market, they said that this came on the market. So they're really actively engaged, and it's not personal that way. It really is like, okay, this is what the data says. This is where I suggest we price it. Now, do you agree to that? Let's do this, right? And then let's talk about it. So it's not this foreign thing. Oftentimes, let's say Aaron lists a property, even the data today, they agree to it, but then things shift. And Aaron doesn't call the seller, and it sits on the market, 30 days later, hey, we have to drop the price. They're like, why has it been 30 days? Right? The market shifted in a week. Call me up. Let's do this. It's not, Aaron wasn't wrong when she listed it. The market shifted. And so, Aaron, as the agent, needs to call it seller. Market shifted. This doesn't mean that we missed it. It means that now we have to readjust to current conditions. Yeah. It makes the conversations a lot easier, especially when you set the expectation that I'm calling you every Friday and I'm calling you every 2 weeks and we're talking about price. Then you're like, okay, you've already committed to doing it. And then it makes it a lot easier to address the sensitive subject of, hey, I'm not getting as much for my house, right? Their goal is to sell it for as much as they can in the market. If the market's telling them they can't sell it for this price, there's no reason to waste their time. Thoughts, Don?
So I think the MLS is such a great tool because you can get an idea of what's going on. If you have a listing in MLS and it's not even being shown, then that tells you that they just don't see the value. They don't see the value in what they're seeing on MLS. So either my information, my data, my pictures, whatever it is on MLS are not good, or they're not seeing the value. For some reason, they're not seeing the value. But if I'm getting a ton of showings and I'm not getting any offers, then okay, at least what they see online looks in line. But then when they get out there, there's something else that's turning them off. And that could be condition, location, whatever it is. But the MLS is such a great tool, not just for giving us inventory, but also telling us what the market's thinking. Because when you look at our MLS system, 46,000 real estate agents who tie into it, plus HAR.com that gets 1 million hits a month. I mean, you get that kind of exposure. That's the market. The market's right there. It's telling you what's going on.
And we got a lot of data that we can pull from it and just present it and say, here we go. And then that's why I always say we're testing the market, because the market's going to respond to us in a way, and then we have to react to it, if you will.
Yep.
So good. But I think it's now being more, I think if you have inventory and you have listings that aren't moving, there are things you can do. And it doesn't necessarily mean more open houses. It means let's look at the conditions. What can you control? Exposure. Where can you get it in front of more people? Condition. What can we do to make the house more appealing? And pricing. If we have 10 other houses that are similar to it, why are we better?
Yep.
Let's sell that. So, yep.
Yeah, it's definitely time. If you've had a listing for 30, 45, 60 days and nothing's happened, it's time to go back and look because the market has shifted that quickly. It really has. We've just now hit that point where you're starting to see prices drop. And what was it? It was 57%. I saw something the other day that said 57% of all sellers are now selling for less than asking price. So that's telling you right there. And, it kind of, sometimes it's the start of a trend that may pick up and may start seeing more of a price drop. But luckily, it looks like demand has started to come back up a little bit too. Just even a little bit of interest rate movement has given us more demand again. I think there's a ton of pent up demand out there. I think you get down to 6. I think it blows the doors wide open.
Yeah. I think if we get down to low 6s or even 5.99 or whatever, there's, like you said, the demand, I think we're gonna be crazy busy, which I just can't wait for that to happen. Obviously, things are still selling here. Hey, Yvonne, how high do you think the property is overpriced?
Well, that is a good question, Mari, because that particular property, it has a big, kind of like a big lot, but the location where it's, they have no restriction on that property. So they can put mobile home there.
Oh.
So that property can be for investment property, and basically they can be able to list, actually there is a 12,500 square footage for the lot.
Mhm.
And the property comes with one mobile home that is a little over 2,000 square footage. So just that property, just that mobile home.
Mhm.
And that is real property. Okay. Then they have one mobile home, a single mobile home located in the corner of that lot, and they are leasing the lot for $500. Okay, and then there is another mobile home.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so and it's listed for $269.
Okay. That's also a more difficult type of property too, because you're looking for a different type of buyer, right?
Exactly.
So, okay.
Exactly. And the problem, I mean, it's not a big problem, but the thing is, there are some houses around that area that they're selling for less, and
Mhm.
it's a house.
Right.
This is a mobile home, okay, for $269. The only thing is it has a big lot, and there another basically mobile home there. So
Yeah, I can see why the problem would be. Generally, if it was a house and you're competing, I would probably pitch the idea to your sellers, saying, "Tell you what, give me 4 more weeks. We'll drop the price. If you drop it to this price, we'll do it for 4 weeks, and then we'll let you go or whatever." Because part of the issue was pricing. This one, probably not so much. I would just do what you're doing.
yeah, no, for me, it's like if they decide to, I mean, do the business themselves, it's fine. I don't want to fight for a listing. I know it's kind of difficult because of the situation, and they think that they can sell the mobile home itself. So and I say, okay, that is completely different story. So it's like I'm not dealing with that.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
they think that they can sell the mobile home by separate than the lot.
And
So
then move it off the land type thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I got you. Okay. Yep. Bye-bye. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, that's fine. And for me, it's even, I mean, it's frustrated. I know. The only thing that I was working with them is because I've been working with their family for so many years, and I know them very well. But the thing that and they have, there is a big family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are so many people involved in that with that particular property. It's like I mean, it's hard
Yeah.
to be able to talk with one when there is four people involved and they're making the decision. So
Or not making it.
Or not, yeah.
or not making
Too many
or they
decisions.
think that of one thing that they can be able to sell it for more, or they want to get more doing, I mean, kind of things that they. I mean, it's hard to understand exactly what they want to do because one person say one thing, the other. It's like coming together and agree with one thing. It's something else that when I speak with one person and they pass along all the information, so it's hard.
Aaron never deals with multiple decision makers, right? In commercial. I'm the joke.
Oh, what did you say? Multiple what?
You never deal with multiple decision makers, right? In commercial.
Oh, actually, the question I was going to ask has to do with multiple decision makers.
Sure.
They're partners, sisters, and they honestly fight like sisters, and they're not making decisions cohesively, but they are under the same entity, which is the one making the purchase. So it's not easy at all. But the question I have is about their deal, and they're considering a fractional condo. Have you ever dealt with that, Marty? I asked Don about it yesterday.
I haven't. I've heard of them, obviously.
It's almost like a timeshare,
Yeah.
except for a timeshare, you're not really getting any ownership interest in the property. Whereas fractional, y'all are tenants, the tenancy in common language, which basically y'all are multiple entities on the same deed.
Correct. Yeah, you own a portion of the property, if you will. But yeah.
So the additional layer with this group is they're also doing a 1031 exchange. So of course, from that standpoint, the 1031 exchange has to show the same entity that sold the property is the owner, and you have to be very mindful about how the deed and all that paperwork reads. So right now I'm kind of running into a little bit of an issue because the intermediary is not in agreement with us pursuing a fractional because they're concerned about the way the paperwork will read with the ownership standpoint. So I'm really kind of looking for some assistance on that, but it's such a unique case. Most people haven't dealt with both a fractional and the 1031.
No.
Is there concern that it's not enough like-kind property?
It's not that, it's just that the paperwork has to accurately reflect the fractional ownership that the new, it has to correctly reflect how much ownership, and it has to be on the right forms.
So they're selling property that they own in this fractional relationship, where Aaron, Yvonne, Don, and myself all own a portion of this business or this property. And we're trying to identify new property and purchase it in the same percentages.
Almost.
Okay.
Yeah, the entity is trying to buy in. We're not trying to sell. We're trying to buy into that fraction that you just broke up of us for. Somebody's selling their piece and we're buying into.
Yeah. So they're buying that percentage of in part of a 31 exchange.
Yes, as part of a 1031 exchange. Yes.
Yeah.
What if you got a hold of one of the other owners and look to see how their deed was created?
So the thing is, that's part of what title is there to do, right? Is to kind of pull up all that information. But the thing is like that would mean we have to go ahead and get under contract, which is not a bad thing. But basically during that option period, we have to determine whether or not we're going to be able to. But title has already said it's going to take them maybe right up against our option period to even pull all of that together. So I think what we will likely end up having to do is maybe extend the option period, maybe do a longer option period so that title can really prove whether or not we'll be able to meet our 1031 standards. I think that's probably where I'm at.
And you're up against the clock on identifying properties too, right? So this is
our deadline is Friday.
Oh. Okay.
When's your option period end?
The option period ends like mid next week.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's like the option period ends after the identification period. Yeah. So it's definitely not easy.
Your 45 day, you've got your 45 days ends.
Yeah, we're basically at the end of that 45-day period. Now we'll still have till January to close it, but it's not going to take till January to close not a condo.
Right.
It might have if it was a commercial property, but yeah.
So did they identify more than one property? Did it like 2 or
They
3?
actually closed 2 properties.
Okay.
We closed one on Friday, we closed one yesterday, and the one we closed yesterday was another HomeSmart agent. So shouts out to Dawn Walter, if y'all know her.
Yep.
But we closed 2, so we're gonna identify the 2 that we closed, and then we're probably gonna identify 2 other ones and likely close 1 to 2 of those.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Might have to do a class after you're done, Aaron.
Right? Exactly. I learned so much. It's very, very interesting. I can't lie. But the question I have, and y'all might not be able to answer, is is 1031 available for primary resident? I think that isn't there a separate one that's only from primary residents to other primary residents? Does anybody know that?
Not
I
that I'm
don't think
aware
you
of.
use 1031.
Oh,
Isn't there
okay,
another one, like called a 1033 or something
Yeah.
like
Right.
that?
I think it is maybe a different
Yeah.
number, but
Yeah.
Different number.
you can
Yeah.
do similar, but it would have to basically be from primary to primary.
And the biggest thing for 1031s or 1033 for that matter is avoiding capital gains. It's rolling the tax gain from one property to the other property. And on residential primary residence, you don't need that. You know, that's the thing. You have an exemption up to a certain amount of dollars. I know that if a property's been, I know my mom had a property. If you don't reside in it 2 out of the last 5 years, it's,
Right.
you know, you need capital gains, right? So you need to
Yes.
exchange. So
The thing is, you need a tax professional, and I have yet to find one that I can stick with, and my clients have yet to find one, and that's really needed. Your tax specialist is going to help you decide what makes sense for your own tax deferment plan. But
Yep.
So if anybody has a great CPA, I'm open to a referral, please.
why don't you talk to Dawn? She's a CPA.
She did tell me that. I actually said I would talk to her.
Yeah, I don't know if she does that, but she's a CPA.
So I definitely need one that focuses on commercial for
Yeah.
sure.
So I don't have any, but if we have any, I'll send them your way too.
Please,
So,
thank you.
you're welcome. Anybody else got something? Bean, Shahid, Laura, Lily, Tamara?
No, I'm just enjoying listening to, all of the feedback. It's always good to, hear and trade and exchange the war stories of real estate.
Yeah, the same here. Learning every day.
That's the best thing about these
Yeah.
calls is learning from each other. Yep.
Yeah, I heard Yvonne and I wanted to just encourage her to, I said, get some money because it's such a pain point to do all of that, and then I agree, like you always want to leave on a high note. But our time is valuable and we're already, kind of trying to tread water as it is in this new, market season. And I had a really big opportunity for probably nearly a 600K listing. And I did a lot of upfront work, got them to sign the listing, all that stuff. And same thing, it was somebody that I'm really close with and I know. And before we went live, they were like, oh, we changed our mind. And you, again, this is like a long time friend. So you feel that tension, you just feel that tension because you're like, I did all this. And so what I did is I kind of kicked back all of the bills on them and just made them pay the bills for stuff. So I'm like, okay, here's all the bills of things that, I haven't paid yet, but you can go ahead and pay. So I had that kind of in my favor because I hadn't paid things yet. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I've got a listing that's been sitting for a while. Same thing. We talked about price over and over and over. He's reduced price multiple times, but if he would have just listened in the first place, and it's an investment property and its condition is not in the best condition. And, it's all over, the buying side, the selling side, I just feel sometimes we're just kind of at a war right now. And I think you're right. Education is the big thing. So I am too. I've turned down some stuff because I don't want to put myself in a position to, continue to shell out money and then, for that to blow up in my face. So I'm like you, Marty. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that because I know where that leads. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I will say this too. Now's a great time for those that if you don't have sellers, you know, and or you have clients that could be potential sellers in the future, send them information, show them the market's changing. You know, that start educating them now with the fact that their prices are about 3% down, that there are almost 6 months of inventory, that buyers, you know, it's a good time to buy, but also sellers that if you're going to come on the market, you got to be realistic right now. You know, how are you going to compete with everybody else? It's a way to stay in contact, you know, and then you might pick up a listing, and then of course they might come on the market with a little bit more like, oh, okay, yeah, you've been preparing me for this. Now we're ready and we'll price it. What do you think? Right? You know, here's the data. So, yep, good. Thanks for chiming in.
I have something.
Sure, Lily.
Okay. And I do enjoy listening to the other agents and their experiences. It helps me a lot. But I have this contract that I'm dealing with, and the selling agent is in Austin. And when I sent the inspection report, what I sent was actually the summary of the inspection report, that I called it the repair request list, because there were so many little things wrong with the property. And the agent wrote me back and asked me to narrow it down to around 3 reasonable items. So I just wondered, that didn't strike too well with me. And I was just wondering, who gives her the authority to tell me to narrow it down to 3? You know?
Yeah, unless she got it from the seller directly, she might have, you know, but she can't do it on her own. It may be a wish for her to say, look, this is confusing or too much, or can you clarify? And of course, as a listing agent, if I got a list like that, I'd go, are you asking for all of it? I'd have follow-up questions for sure.
Right.
And what are you actually asking for? Right. So I probably take her at her word at this point in time. The seller wants it, you know, that they're probably not willing to do all of it, but they have to present it. So if I would probably clarify in the sense that they're, you know, seller to a seller expense, you know, address items 1 through 30 on attached inspection report, you know, so that they know that you're asking them to take care of this prior to closing type thing. You know?
Well, I did get with the buyer, and it was narrowed down to 7.
Okay.
And I haven't heard from her. I just emailed her this morning to confirm that she received the list.
Okay.
And she hasn't responded yet. But I just wanted to know how you all felt about, you know, another agent telling you to narrow it down.
Yeah. No,
Agents exceeding their authority? Oh,
Right.
no, that never happens.
imagine that. Yeah. I think
Thank
the worst
you.
part of it about it, Lily, is when you got agents on both sides, but where listening to go, they won't take that. Well, you submit it to the seller, or they won't go for that. Well, okay, again, this
Well,
is an offer.
It's obvious that she didn't submit it.
Yeah.
You know, the first one to the seller, because she said to narrow it down so she can review with her client. So
Yeah, I think-
apparently she didn't show the
Probably
first
not. And you obviously you could have said, well, actually present this, and then have your seller respond in kind as you're supposed to.
Okay.
As the listing agent, I would have probably said, I just need clarification. Can you send me an email or send me something of what you're actually asking for here? If I got a list of things that are wrong, what are the things that your seller or buyer, I'd want to know, as a listing broker, I go, what's important to your buyer? Are they all important? I need to know that.
Yeah. Well,
Marty, usually seller doesn't want to see that. They got to disclose it. If this deal falls through, they got to disclose all that stuff on the next disclosure. They push that back for that reason a lot of times.
Well, oftentimes, yeah, but that still has to be the seller. You know, it was sent to the agent. The agent has a responsibility to pass it on to the seller. So the agent may be advocating, to your point, on behalf of the seller, so they don't have a disclosure obligation. Who knows? They still have an obligation. They still got it. So, yep.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So one question. So in that situation, instead of reducing it to 3, can one list priority top 10?
You can. I mean, you're asking for whatever. You're asking for
Yeah.
a list, but you can let the agent know that the buyer, these are the ones that they have to have.
Right.
The rest of them may be negotiable. And that's perfectly fine. You're advocating for your buyer at that point in time. But you wouldn't say seller to events, these 10 things, and then these 5 things they can do if they want to do. You wouldn't do that.
No.
You would say,
Not like.
I want all 15, but these
Yeah.
are the
Correct.
priorities.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they won't do them then, right? So, Don, you want to chime in on that before we end?
No, I was just relating it to my own personal experience here. So,
Yeah.
and I'm in the middle of negotiating to buy a house too, and we just went through inspections and all of that. So I was just relating it to personal experience here.
I will say this: most of you on the call are experienced agents, but it's amazing to me. 2 things that are kind of my pet peeves when it comes to being a broker and being in business is, one, you're not renegotiating the deal after inspection. You're negotiating what you found in the inspection. You negotiated the deal up front based on what you saw. Now you've got new information. You're negotiating that only. And way too many agents tell their clients that we're going to renegotiate the deal. Don't worry. Let's get it assigned around and then we'll renegotiate and beat them up on inspection. No, that's just not. Anyway, the second part is on if you're buying a 40-year-old house, it's not a new house. The buyers expect everything to be fixed. Some of those are wear and tear. You know, you're paying for a 40-year-old house. Yes, we want certain things to work, like the roof and the foundation, that kind of, yeah. But some of the stuff that are cosmetic, this is kind of what you get in the market. Kind of be reasonable when you're an inspection response. I think many agents miss out on that. Lily, yeah.
What about electrical? You know, like the older houses, they don't meet up the code, today's code.
Yep. And that's a choice.
That can be very expensive because you got to change out everything in the box.
Yep. Many of the older houses have been updated, but you're right. Some of them, they may be priced accordingly or not.
Well, this one hasn't been updated. So
yeah. And if it's in the same price as other ones that have been updated, perfectly fine. Say, yeah, seller, your home's outdated. This is, a fire hazard. It's got an old panel. It's got electrical. Obviously, those things are important. But, if it's a mortar thing or something that's cosmetic, you're like, or it's an old stove. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. I've seen things like, well, well, yeah. Okay. What do you expect, right? I think part of it is setting the expectations for buyers, is saying you're not going to get everything new. If you want new, you need to go buy a new house. But, we want things to be working properly and safely. So, yep.
Well, like the exhaust vent for the dryer is vented in the attic and not outdoors, not through the roof.
Yep. And then you have condensation and all of that land up in the attic, making a fire hazard, right? Yeah, those are things definitely to call out. That are, it should have been done that way in the first place. Oftentimes they're not. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
That's I've got my soapbox over here as broker. But it makes things difficult when they're like, okay, I understand that, but this is a negotiation. You saw the house. Some of the things you saw when you toured the house and made the offer, and now you're putting in an inspection response. Well, those become an issue. So, all right.
Try to keep it simple.
Try to keep it simple. That's right. The old KISS method, right?
Yeah, right.